Dairy ration. White, itchy patches of skin on my arms. Not vitiligo, not eczema, but lactose. My whole life growing up until about the age of 9, I had these random patches of itchy, dry skin that wouldn't go away, right above my elbow and both arms. For the beginning years of my life, my mom would take me to the doctor and get my skin tested. She was concerned it was vitiligo, a disease that makes you have white patches of skin, but she would be told by multiple doctors that it was eczema. She would give me medication to try and cure the patches, but they would never work. I just had to live with these itchy patches on my arm. Whenever I met someone new, a question asked could be, "What is that on your arms?" Or, "How did you burn yourself?" But they were hard questions to answer because I didn't know what the marks were from. You can see the weirdest look on other people's faces when looking at my arms. They would stare for a few seconds and ask their questions about burns or scars, and I thought I'd have to live with that my whole life. I didn't have burns on my arms or anything, and I didn't know how they were getting there, so I always just decided to tell people I had a rash. It was sort of like a rash, so that wasn't really stretching the truth, but it felt weird not knowing and not being able to tell people the whole story. It made me feel awkward because the rash was quite obvious. The skin where it was much lighter than my normal skin tone. I was compelled to wear a lot more long sleeve shirts back in my younger days because of this rash. And I hate long sleeve shirts. I feel like they limit my arm movement. It feels weird to me. When I was about 8 years old, I moved from San Francisco to Oakland. In Oakland, something great happened. Just after I turned 9, my mom started shopping with a nutritionist at a healthy food store. While there, she asked the nutritionist about my arm rash. She gave her all the symptoms, told her what I liked to eat, and waited for her answer. I was a pretty heavy dairy eater at the time. I loved pizza, ice cream, cereal, chocolate, almost anything with dairy. Listening to what my mother had said, the nutritionist made the conclusion that it was a rash from dairy and that I was lactose intolerant. For the next 2 weeks after she told my mom that I was lactose intolerant, I cut dairy out of my diet. It was very hard because almost everything I ate had some sort of dairy in it, even in canned spaghetti I would eat. After 2 weeks, I watched as the white patches of skin on my arm disappeared and became my normal skin tone. After those 2 weeks, I started eating dairy again, and of course, the patches came back. That proved that the rash was from eating dairy. When I found out that I could finally get rid of these awful patches on my arm, I was ecstatic. I thought I would have these for the rest of my life. It was great to know how to control the rash, but it was difficult to adapt to not eating dairy. Adapting to not eating dairy was not just hard, it was extremely difficult. When my mom shops for me, she can't just grab what looks good. She has to read the back of the package to see if it contains milk, and if it did, she would have to find something new. I honestly don't get how some of these things I ate had dairy in it. A simple can of raviolis with no cheese had dairy in it. There was one shocking moment when I learned that Oreos don't contain milk, even though they are chocolate and have cream filling. It wasn't just the shopping that was hard. It was also me not being able to eat the foods that I've been eating for my entire life. But eventually I adapted, and now I'm dairy free. No more itchy patches of skin on my arm. No more rash.